Greetings, fellow chainsaw enthusiasts. I am Kirk. So I did an intro video yesterday on heating and cooling these, and I put the crank in the freezer. And then I just got back from my friend Rod Simonian's house. He's a master chainsaw mechanic and he runs the Holzfforma. He's the authorized dealer here in town. Look him up online. He does a lot of online business too. It's Simonian Saws, Simonian Saws. I'll try to remember to put a little flash of that there. If not, I'll put it down in the comments. And he kind of talked me out of doing the heat and cool. He said the bearings need to be heated, or the heat that needs to, the concentrated heat that needs to happen in here, he was concerned that an oven wouldn't get us there, and he uses torches and has to distribute, and he said it's kind of an artful task, which I'm not up to. And not in a ploy to sell me something. I mean, we're friends. It's not like he's trying to make a buck off of me. But for $40, he had this part number. Where the heck is the camera? This part number. Let me shake, huh? It's the crank puller. So I went ahead and bought it from him. So we are gonna right now figure out how to use it. He also sent me the shop manual, which I'm obviously grateful for, but I'm gonna try to do it. You know, I've already jumped out and done another 40 bucks here on trying to build a inexpensive saw. And I did that. I mean, I stared off into the wild blue yonder and thought about how I wanted to go about that if it compromised what I was trying to do. But I don't want to ruin $100 or $200 kit when I had an opportunity to spend 40. And you know, I can pass this on to somebody else, or maybe I'll build another saw, who knows. So here's what the kit came with. Got a large nut, large washer, 2 different internally and externally threaded bolts, one for each side, one for the crank side, one for the chain side, and one for the flywheel side, and then a puller. So without even looking at manuals, let's see if it makes sense how this goes together. So you remember from the previous video that I had labeled these F and C so that I knew which went where. And this is my C side, that is my C side. So that's going to go in there. Okay, so that's seated with authority, but not adequately. I'm gonna grab a flashlight. This one has the tactical bezel on it in case any of you guys get froggy. So it's seated to that far, and I'm quite sure this gap needs to be closed, so that's what we're trying to do now. So we'll start, that's a large flange that seems to go here. And then this is the larger inside diameter, which is the chain side. So I'll run this on. A washer to protect the mating surfaces. So we've run the nut on and we've got a washer floating there. I'll try to next thing I did was, okay, so that's the chain side of the crank. Slide that guy over. Slide this over the shaft and into the bearing there. And then I'm trying to spin it down, get it to bite. What I'm doing now is I'm having trouble getting the threads to bite, so I'm backing this up all the way. Oh, and this side's reverse thread. That's why I wasn't having any luck with that. Okay. Right, we remember that from different videos we've seen. The chain side is reverse. So then, to impact gun or to wrench. Okay. So I've got the inner sleeve seated onto the threads of the chain side of the shaft, and then I've run the nut and washer combo down enough to hold that. So now I'm going to try just with a basic crescent wrench, if I can get a couple cranks on there. I'm not afraid of banging and beating on stuff, but I certainly like to treat it as a last resort. So it's going. It's just going to take me a second here. I definitely see that gap closing. Good thing I had that slice of carrot cake for breakfast. All right, I still have a little bit of daylight in there. Oh shit. That could be a fatal mistake. I didn't have the crank arm out of the way, so now I'm afraid it's bound. So here goes the bang. Stopped against the nut. That was pretty sloppy of me. Hope you all learned from that. All right, liberated the crank arm, seems straight, and I feel stupid. Okay, so now the crank arm is floating in here and it's home. And we'll go back to this, and possibly it'll be easier now that there's not a physical obstruction. I did mar the crankcase a bit. That's a bummer. See it right there. I don't think it's catastrophic, but what am I looking at? Right here. Put a little bit of a dent in there. I'll hit that with a light filing. Come on, Kirk. Get your head in the game. Oh yeah, it goes in pretty easy. If you had any resistance, something's wrong. So that side's seated. And we'll hit that marring. A little file action. Hey, this is for YouTube. We'll use a brand new file. Choosing this is smoothing out pretty easily. All right, I'm calling that good. Let me check the travel. This is impeding me. I'm having to lock the crank with my thumb because the whole shaft wants to spin, because it's supposed to. Back the lock nut all the way out so I'm not fighting anything. And then I want to get, oh, reverse thread, Kirk. There we go. That side's done. All right, so I'm a little concerned about interference there, and there is none. That's where I put that little mar. Good linear travel. So that's good. Now let's do the same thing. Let's put the gasket on and then do the same thing with the other side. Looks like through my messing around, one of the pins moved over to the other side of the case. So I'm putting it back in here. Okay. Now we'll cautiously set this. Okay, so now we've got new things to be aware of. We got to make sure that everything's lined up as we draw it in, right? Not to state the obvious, but obviously I'm missing some obvious things. So the nut transfers to the other shaft, which I've lost and found. And this is, I would say this was $40 well spent. This is really making a difference for me here. I'm happy with it. Run the lock nut all the way down. This is the one with the smaller opening. Smaller thread, and this one is right-hand thread. Lock nut on. The same bushing. Washer. And then I'll slide this into the bushing. All right, so we're positioned. I'm not really happy with the way the gasket's laying, but yeah, it's good. It's good. So now we're going to run the jam nut down. Holding onto the crank arm to keep the crank from rotating. And I'm just going to ease it into place. Yep, I feel it drawing already. I'm missing my alignment holes. Rotate the shaft a little bit to give me as much of that crank arm to hold on to. And I'm just monkey gripping it. Watching my alignment all the way around the assembly. Quarter turn. I'm sitting on the pins now. That one and that one. So I'm going to keep cranking. Oh man, it draws in smooth. Wow. I was really concerned about this stage. The first stage. I was really concerned about the first stage of this chainsaw build. That's true. The rest is just, it's trim. This is the money maker right here, right? This is the heart and soul of the saw. So there's a portion here that does not have gasket backing. That's the only daylight I see, and everything else looks like it's drawn down evenly. I'm going to try one more crank since I've got it all set up. All right, that's seated. Back off my lock nut now. I'm going to let the crank arm do its thing so that I'm not undoing anything. Or am I? Guys, we did it. We did it. I'm gonna go grab some blue Loctite real quick and run down the screws. Put this assembly back together and in the box. And take it back to Rod and tell him I never used it. I'm kidding. He's probably gonna watch this. Not that I would do it anyway, just saying. Blue Loctite. It's in my drill bag, of course. Where else would you keep blue Loctite? All right. So we've got our got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bolts. Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where did I count 6? I didn't. But there's a bolt hole back here. Let's see what that is. We'll get the blue Loctite. A dot on the end. Drop that one in. That one in. Oh shoot. That one in. This is number 4. And that's number 5. Down. Okay, so I'm having an alignment issue with the first bolt. So I'm going to try some of the other ones. I think it was the gasket choking down the pass-through hole. So we'll just power through it. That worked on that one. Got 1 out of 4, 5. There we go. Yeah, it's just resistance from the gasket, because once it bites, it starts chasing. Boy, I wish these were 10 millimeter. Because this wrench looks a lot nicer to hold on to than this one. This is the last one of those 5. I have 1 left over. I'm obviously going to take a look and see if I'm overlooking something. I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's taking a fair amount of force to get this in there, just to get it past that gasket. But it likes its home once you get past the gasket, so. So, unfortunately, there have been a whole lot of changes and substitutions from our original game plan. But the ultimate goal is to build a champagne saw on a beer budget. All right, I think we're ready to wrap up this phase, because we have 2 mated cranks. We now have the bottom end of a Husqvarna 372. Almost. These are the ball end type Allens, which I'm kind of torn on. The square cut ones are much toothier. The round ones are nice because they're more forgiving. They're more forgiving on your angle of entry into the bolt head. But we'll see, even this one, that's kind of rounded on the edges. I like them. The higher end ones are really square cut on the edges, and that's my preference. Anyway, we did it, guys. So what's next? We've got to trim this gasket. I guess we could do that. Now I need to go back and do some research and make sure that I'm not coming up short on a bolt. I don't see any other holes here. Oh yes I do. Oh yes I do. So I see a hole right here. So let's try it. Well, it's the right size. And it's drawing in nicely. And it drew all the way in. So that's where that 6th bolt goes. It's kind of the rest of them are internal to the case, and then this one's on the outside. So I'm gonna just put some blue Loctite on it because I want that to be its new home. Again. what a screw looks like when it's going into a hole. All right, that's good. It's very good. Now, if I remember correctly, Matthew recommends just a utility knife for shaving these gaskets. There's not much to shave. Trying not to wreck the powder coating, so that's good. And then this whole bottom side needs some work. I have something. Ask anyone. So now I'm just scoring one side and scoring the other. But I'm also remembering how tough they were to get through with the screw. I'm doing a butcher job here, but I'm afraid that's what's going to end up happening. Okay, one side. Two sides. Reasonable trim, not perfect. And chase it up this way. Sorry I'm not more exciting. I'm considering turning the video off, but I kind of want you to see minute by minute how this process goes. Good, the bad, and the ugly. So I definitely feel like this is too big of a blade for what I'm doing. This is just a conventional utility blade. Should have one of the kids do this. They love arts and crafts. Okay, that's that. And then this one's going to be a little trickier. That's up front there, and what is that? It's tank handle land, right? Trim on one side. Side. It was easier than I thought it would be. Okay. phase 1 done. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this was more valuable than boring, and I wish you all luck on your saw builds. And I'll try to have the next stage out here in a couple days, because I certainly am excited to have it done. And in my mind, you guys are excited to see me finish it too, so that's all very motivating for me. Thank you for tuning in. I'm looking for my little clicker thingy. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next chapter.